Morning, boys. So today I want to have a look at the answers for chapter one. I gave you these questions to do last week, and you should have done them. So just to make sure that you are on the right track in terms of answering the questions, I'm just going to take you through them. I'm just going to scroll down, and this is for you to correct your own answers. Make sure that you are on the right track in terms of the answers that you have given. So question one was what effect is created by beginning the novel with the mention of Rose's body parts. Um, so it was really weird the way that he started, and he started it off with the title of the novel actually, and he said, my sister lives on the mantelpiece, and then he talks about the different parts and where the parts are in like where they are. So the intention of this was really to get our attention, right? So if you even the title itself, my sister lives on a mantelpiece, makes no sense whatsoever. And I actually had no idea what it meant until I actually read the blurb, and then I realized, oh, it was her ashes in an urn. So the intention there is to grab our attention and to make us keep reading the novel. Question two, what do you think is the significance of Jamie telling the story? So anybody could have told the story. The author could have made the story from an adult's perspective or a girl's perspective, and she didn't do that. She actually made it from a 10-year-old's perspective. Um, so the answer that I just gave there was so that we understand what tragedy and what loss feels like or looks like from a child's perspective. Remember, Jamie also doesn't remember his sister. So for him, he doesn't like it doesn't really hurt him that his sister passed away. He doesn't really remember her. Um, and so it doesn't really have any impact on him, really. Okay. So it really just helps us to understand how a little boy thinks and maybe his perspective. And it's not all boys' perspectives, but it really helps you to understand that, hey, like a boy whose sister died when he was 5 years old isn't going to be very sad about it because they don't remember their sister, you know? So, okay. Question three. Why are the parents still not happy even after getting their way? Remember, um, there are bits of Rose, bits of her body part that are in an urn on the mantelpiece, but there are bits of her where she's buried in a graveyard. And if you remember, write this down. If you remember, um, Rose's mother wanted to have a place where she could visit her, where she could visit Rose. So that's why she wanted her to be buried. And her father wanted to carry her everywhere that he went. And so that's why he wanted her to be cremated. But even though they both got their way, they're still not happy. And that obviously is because even though they got their own way, Rose is not alive, and Rose is not going to come back to life, and none of this is going to bring Rose back to life. Okay, so that's why they're still not happy about it. Okay. Question four: why would Jamie think that Jazz is the reason his mom left? Remember, write these things down. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to write the stuff down. So this is important to write down. Remember that Jasmine and Rose were identical twin sisters. Okay, so you can imagine if Rose died and Jasmine stayed behind. So every time the parents looked at Jasmine, they would remember Rose. And you'll actually see if you read further, and if you're like Ross and you finish the novel, you'll know that at the end of the novel there's a chapter that's written from Jazz's perspective. Okay, and it actually explains why she actually changed the way she looks. So Jasmine, after her sister died, changed the way that she looks. She colored her hair and she changed her clothes and just behaved differently. And so Jamie thinks that that's probably why their mother left, is that maybe because if Jasmine is trying to change her hair and change the way that she looks and doesn't look like Rose at all, then she's probably trying to forget Rose, or she doesn't think that Rose was important. And so maybe Jamie thinks that that's why his mother left. Okay, let's look at question five. What can we tell about the dad's attitude towards Muslim people? It's kind of straightforward. He can't stand Muslim people. He hates them, and he actually holds them responsible for Rose's death. Obviously, we know that was a terrorist attack, but because those people, the people who did the attack, were Muslim, the assumption is that all Muslims are bad. This is Jamie's dad's um, perspective. So he hates all Muslim people because one Muslim person was responsible for his daughter's death. Okay. Question 6. Jasmine turns to horoscopes to give her guidance and advice. Where do you think teenagers should find such support? So this one is open-ended. I mean, there's no, you guys are the teenagers and you should know, where you should be going. And so the answer here could be an adult that you look up to, an adult that you respect, or even your parents. I mean, your parents should be able to guide you and advise you, or someone older that you respect. And Jasmine, if you notice in the house, there is Jasmine's father who drinks a lot and who really doesn't really notice anything that happens in the house. And then the rest is younger people. She doesn't have anyone to look up to. She only has herself, and her father's not really present. So she turns to horoscopes. Okay. Question 7. What is implied about the flat in London through the use of personification? In what way has the flat been personified? So you had to identify, you have to be able to identify personification. So I found it on page 3, where Jamie says that if he were to draw houses as people, then I would turn the cottage into a crazy old granny smiling with no teeth. So this is the example of personification. He's saying that he would make the cottage look like a granny. And so the significance of that is that he's suggesting that the house is old because grannies are old. And the house is like falling apart because the granny doesn't have any teeth. And how do grannies lose their teeth? They literally just fall out. My granny's teeth just started falling out when she was getting older. So what he's implying there is that the house is old and it's falling apart. Like, so maybe the cupboard screws are loose or the windows are broken. It's really old and it's not looked after. It's dilapidated. Okay. And maybe by saying that it's a crazy old granny, suggesting that the cottage doesn't look like what the other houses look like. So maybe it's just, and there's actually a house just up the road from here where an old lady lives, and it doesn't look very well looked after. It looks very, very old. Yeah, the house looks like an old granny. Yeah. And it doesn't look like the houses next door. I should actually take a picture and show you guys. Okay, so number 8. Jamie was hopeful for a brand new life. What changes do you think he wanted to see? So if you were to put yourself in Jamie's shoes and you were to think about um, what are some of the things that he was hoping for? Like he was very excited in chapter 1. He's very excited to move to this new place because he's hoping for change. So this was open ended. When I say open ended, I read what your responses are to see what you think, right? Um, so maybe on the one level you can say maybe he thought that his family would be happier if they moved. Maybe his dad would stop drinking. Maybe his parents would get back together. So those are the things that he's hoping for. From the beginning of the novel, he keeps hoping that his mother's gonna come back um, all the time. Question 9. I think this is the last question. What is your initial impression of Jamie from this chapter? Use evidence from the chapter to support your answer. So for me, I think that he's very frank and he's very straightforward and to the point. My impression of him is that he understands things very literally. I don't think a lot of people are like, oh, he's so insensitive. He doesn't even miss his sister. How come he's not crying about it? But reading the novel from his perspective gave me so much understanding from his perspective. If you think about it, boys, what do you remember from when you were 5 years old? Um, we'd, and when I think about myself, I don't remember a lot of things from when I was 5 years old. So it's really unfair for us to think that Jamie would be sad and like broken and all of these things because of his sister's death. So for me, I really sympathize with him because he doesn't know better and he doesn't realize, and he just wants things to go back to normal, and he just wants to be understood and he wants to be heard, but no one's really listening or understanding him. Okay, so I hope these answers were helpful. I want you to I hope that you're watching this video and you take notes. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. I'll be online waiting patiently. Bye.